Now, this is the second part to the disappearance of Michael Marino. I have this chunk down into 3 parts. The first part goes over the potential John David Norman connections. The second part goes over the potential other places of burial other than Gacy's crawl space. And the third part goes over the fight to get the body exhumed. Now, one of the last places Marino and his friend Kenneth Parker would allegedly be seen was at the Munchies hamburger joint in Newtown, which was an area where a lot of underage prostitution was taking place at the time in Chicago. This area would also be near where John David Norman had lived at the time at 707 West Wrightwood. Based on a December 1976 missing persons report, Marino would allegedly be seen attempting to board a Greyhound bus in Chicago. He was allegedly with a man, which if you know anything about John David Norman, he had a cross-country program where youths were arranged with customers who were at a distance, as well as to take them on trips. Witnesses claimed at this time that Marino had used the name Louis Soto, which was a man known to the Marino family. It was also stated Marino lived near the section of 2721 North Halstead, where Paskey and Norman were also running their operation. In 1978, a youth named Darrell Rivers would notice Marino and his friend Kenneth Parker and would approach them. This would allegedly be outside of a Cheeks, which was a gay leather bar, which was also in the previously mentioned area in Newtown where underage prostitution was taking place at the time in Chicago. This was also near where John David Norman lived. The youth would state that Marino would state he was working. Allegedly, Marino offered to sell pot to Rivers and had asked how his family was doing. Rivers would state he had never reported this information. He had reported this information to both the police and Sherry Marino, which Sherry would go on to report the encounter to the police. Later, when WGN had started doing reports regarding Marino's disappearance, Rivers would state he was positively sure it was Marino who he had talked to on that day. Potential other places of burial other than Gacy's crawl space. In 2003, the Rainbow Arena would be demolished and reconstructed for condominiums. A construction worker on site would discover human bones in the basement of the property. A few days later, more bones would be discovered in the same spot. When the bones were recovered, they had recovered 2 different pairs of shoes with bone fragments, which could indicate 2 different victims. Additionally, other bone fragments indicated 2 different individuals when further testing was done. Sherry Marino would also go on to state her son Michael had frequented the arena. Though due to the clothing being of no more age than 10 years from its production, it was unlikely to be Michael's body. Though there is still no update on the identification of the 2 bodies that were found in 2003. There is no NAMUS page or anything else of the matter, despite the fact it was reported. Now, the fight to get the body exhumed. In 2011, William Dorsch and Sherry Marino would go to the medical examiner's office of Cook County to request an autopsy report. They would be told by a woman named Nancy Jones it would potentially take 3 to 4 weeks to get a copy. She would excuse herself and bring over an assistant named Nancy Merrick, who would help Sherry Marino fill out the paperwork. In June of 2011, William Dorsch would receive a call from Nancy Jones and would be told that it was not necessary for him or Sherry Marino to return to the Cook County Medical Examiner's office, as she had reviewed the autopsy personally and had found that the body was that of Michael Marino. She would also state that she had sent a letter to Sherry Marino on the matter. Dorsch would state that this would lead to an escalation, and Nancy would tell him, "Bill, why are you doing this? You're going to get a lot of people mad." Dorsch would claim that he had said that, "Nancy, I don't care who gets mad. What I know is that Mrs. Marino's son, Michael, went missing in Chicago in October 1976. In 1980, she was told that body had been identified by comparing dental records she had given your office. She had always questioned the identification that came from your office. She has a right to get a copy of the autopsy report." Nancy would respond by telling Dorsch, "Bill, if you want answers, go dig up the body of Dr. Stein." Sherry would also claim she had never received this letter that Nancy had claimed to send about the verification of the body being Michael Marino. This would lead to the involvement of attorneys in the case. This would lead to a petition being filed for the exhumation of Michael Marino's body. Weeks later, they would receive a response requiring two exceptions. For one, they could not find the x-rays, and additionally, that another office would respond to their request for photographs. Dorsch would later be told by attorneys that the dental charts were not included with the documents provided, and that they were looking for a response for the absence of dental x-rays. They would then later file a petition with the Cook County Attorney's Office, as they were notified this was the location of the x-rays of the Gacy victims. They would continue going through despite not having the x-rays yet with a petition for the exhumation of what is alleged to be Michael Marino's body. Though, a month later, finally, the exhumation for the grave would be granted, though the body would not still be exhumed for close to a year. Though, it should be noted, interestingly, 1 week after the court win for exhuming Michael Marino's body, the police department would set up the task of identifying the last 8 Gacy victims, and that they had exhumed these bodies. Nonetheless, in 2012, it would be discovered once the DNA tests were complete that Sherry Marino was not the mother to the body in Michael Marino's grave. It would be found that the body exhumed was primarily white with potential Native American admixture, which Michael was of complete Italian background. Additionally, Sherry would give a clothing description to police on the day Michael went missing, stating he was wearing a blue tanker coat, blue jeans, and gym shoes with a gold/sapphire ring. The body that was exhumed in Michael Marino's grave would be found wearing dark corduroy trousers with a belt buckle, 2 maroon-colored socks, and a pair of canvas-like shoes. It should be also noted that the body had a broken collarbone, which Marino had never sustained a broken collarbone in life.